Times are pretty tough at the moment, considering what's happening around the world. And what this is going to leave us in is a position where there's going to be less people employed. The competition for jobs is probably going to be greater than we've ever experienced, certainly in our lifetimes. And it's going to be interesting how well people actually compete for those jobs, because there's probably not going to be enough jobs in the short term, to cater to the needs of the population. So, like I said, it's going to be some tough times ahead of us, even tougher than now, I would envisage. But when it comes to competition for jobs, a lot of people don't realise that there are a few key elements associated with your ability to get those jobs. One of them is having a network and a connection with people. And I don't know what the numbers are, but a lot of people have said to me that the networks they have, in most circumstances have helped them get work. And I believe, there's some high percentage or some percentage of people that get jobs primarily through networks. But the second thing in relation to getting jobs that's really important to people in addition to networks is your CV. Because if you don't have a network and you've got to apply for a job or a promotion, then the primary tool you're going to utilise is your CV. And it will go with an application of some type. And then when you lodge that, that's the tool that you're going to utilise to judge whether or not you're the right person for that job and whether or not you get an interview. Unfortunately, in my experience, most CVs fail to do the job that they were designed for. And that's what this is about. If I go back to the mid-90s, early 90s, where I worked in the government at that point in time, it's where I kind of got first involved in the process of, sitting on panels and recruiting people. And fortunately for me, I'd had some really, really good advice from people on how to structure and deliver an application for a promotion or a job. Now, when I got involved on the other side of the table, where I'd sit on the panel and I'd interview people, and before that we would go through all of the applications, it was where I started to realise that there was an inadequacy in the way that people are being taught and their understanding of what it is you put in the CV. So fast forward, a couple of years when I went and worked in BHP, I worked overseas, and we were in a situation, I remember at one point in time, where we had to recruit quite a few people for one of the departments. And we literally got hundreds and hundreds of applications. So people would send in their resume, as they would refer to it at the time, as their application. And we just sit down and we just go through them one after the other. And I remember my frustrations at the time, because I would look at these resumes, these CVs, these applications that people put in, and it became very obvious to me that they focused on a couple of things. It's kind of like if there's two people talking and one person says, listen, here's what you should be doing. The other one says, hang on a minute, you shouldn't be doing that. And then they get into an argument. They'll fall back to some sort of, baseline around their level of experience. So one party will say, well, hang on a minute, I've had 27 years experience doing this. And the other one says, well, that's nothing. I've had 35 years experience doing that. Well, that concept, I saw this in a lot of these applications, because what they listed in there was length of experience. I did this job and I did it for 6 years, and I did that job and I did it for 22 years or whatever it might be. But what they weren't doing was giving me the information I was looking for at the time. I was looking not for the experience that they had. I was looking to answer a couple of questions. First of all, were they qualified? Did they have the technical qualifications for the job? So some jobs have some specific requirements, that need to be met. The second thing, were they the right type of person that I needed for this job? They were relying on, longevity in a particular role as being the basis for that. What I wanted to know is what they had been responsible for and what achievements they had made. And over this period of, doing this, I realised today, now, in my 45 years of working, that the development of a CV that sells you is the primary goal. And if you're not mapping in there the key elements of information that the people on the panel are looking for, like, what job have you been in, but more than that, what have you achieved in there, then what happens is you've got a product that fails to do its job, and that is sell the person who's listed within that CV. So you've got to think about that, as you're going forward in applying for promotions or jobs or whatever the case may be, that your CV is a thing that needs to sell you. It is a selling tool, and it needs to present your value to the person who's looking at it before you get an interview. The intent of that is that they actually ring you up and say, listen, come in, we want to have a talk. So how do you actually go about it? Well, there's 3 parts to this that are worth talking. Number one, and this is a thing that, I've been focused on the last 20 years of our business, entirely doing this as much as I can for people. Number one, you need to generate content that is relevant to a CV. Now, you can do that in a couple of ways, because remember, a CV is a piece of information that you give someone, and you have to populate it with content. What do you actually put in there? So aside from personal details and things like that, there's 2 primary pieces of content that you need to generate. One is qualifications and training. So you need to, show that there's a continuous, a continuous focus on self-development. That's almost more important than the qualifications. So if you're applying, when I ran the hospital overseas, if you're applying for a job in that hospital, there may be specific jobs in there that you've applied for that you need a specific qualification. You need to have, to be trained as a nurse or to be trained and qualified as a doctor. So I get that. You need those specific qualifications that are technically relevant to the role and almost dictated, legislatively, through some rules that you need to have those. There's also courses that you would do that demonstrate, like I said, your commitment to continuous improvement. And they can be short courses. They can be things that relate to, a 30-minute course online. It can be anything. And when you have a collection of those things, they, like I said, they demonstrate your commitment to personal development, which is ongoing improvement, continuous change. The other part of this that we've got to remember is that what I really want to see is your achievements. And you get those achievements by solving problems. So in any role that you're in, you're going to be confronted with problems, because if it's a perfectly running ship, which is probably no job that sits in that bracket, but if it's a perfectly running ship, well, guess what? You're just doing day-to-day maintenance. You're not doing anything other than maintaining. And what we want to see is what you've done to create a difference. And that comes, like I said, through problem solving. It could be a problem that relates to strategy. It could be a problem that relates to, getting people to buy products. It could be a problem related to developing new services. It could be a problem related to process. The process is not generating sufficient revenue. It's creating a lot of defects, or there's insufficient throughput. So any of these types of problems, if you can resolve them and move them forward and incrementally make gains, you're achieving things. And it's those achievements that, for me, become more important as your qualifications. So we generate content for our CV. The second thing is we then document those. And we document those in a template that when someone comes up and reads it, right, it presents the information that they need to see. And the thing that I'm looking for, so for example, if you're sitting in your current position in whatever it might be, I want to see what the title of that position is. I want to see what the principal or primary role it is that you perform in that position. I want to see what your key responsibilities are, and I want to understand the significant achievements you've made. So if you presented, in here, listen, here's the job I do. I've been doing it for 6 years, and this is what I was responsible for. That's not enough, right? Because that doesn't tell me how good you are in it. The person who documents achievements, who documents the problems they've solved in there, is going to stand out from the pack. You're going to miss out. They're going to get that job, or they're going to get that interview, is probably what I should say. So the second part is to document. The first one was generate the content. The second one was document it. The third one is when you deliver a CV to people, don't think that a CV is the CV. You send it to everyone. And people have made that mistake in applying for jobs with me. And whether it be in government and in BHP, it's the same thing. The thing that you need to understand with CVs is you need to tailor it to the job. So if you're applying for a job that's in IT, you need to tailor the language and the focus of it and the theme of it towards something that is relevant to that. You need to, prioritize the front. If you do a summary of experiences, because I think if I just scroll through our template, if you list your skills and expertise on the front page, which is what we do, or affiliations and the education, primary education that you've had, well, the pecking order and the sequence of those things should be relevant to the job that you're applying. So it's not a matter of just having this one CV and sending it to everyone. You need to tailor it specifically to the job that you're doing, and more importantly, the letter that accompanies that, that's the thing that should be really sharp in terms of its application and relevance to the job or promotion you're applying for. So that's it. I hope that is useful to you, and it helps you in some way in, what's going to happen to us in the future, in the near future, which is we're going to have to compete pretty hard for the attention of other people, particularly in terms of promotion and employment, and also in my case, getting people to give attention to your own products and services. So if you want to, more information about that, go to nineskillsfactory.com, and we actually have a downloadable template there. So if you look on the front page, somewhere there'll be a little swipe file image that is associated with CV templates. Click on it, you'll get to download the CV template in various formats, pages for people who have Mac, in Word document for people who have Microsoft products, and you'll also get a little booklet, a guide booklet on how to assemble it. So that's it from me. Enjoy.